Hey, y'all, you know what time it is? Bam! Get into it! Get into it! Yeah! What's up? I'm back, baby. How we doing? As I always have to say, I do not own the music that you are listening to in the background, which is, of course, as we last were here last week, is from Mr. Ambient. Mr. Ambiance. It is ambient music for one of my favorite animated movies, one of my favorite films, Anastasia. Love that. Now, y'all, for whoever grew up in the 90s, and if you have children, I highly... Here's the thing. First of all, glad that I am back. Storytime with Chris is going to be here for the rest of my days. Like, I'm not going to give it up. I just had to take a couple of days off to get myself together and take care of a couple of things around the house. Yes, I know there is a giant pimple in the middle of my forehead, but do not worry, she will be gone. With lots of apricot scrub from St. Ives, which is a great facial cleanser, and it's super affordable. No shameless plugging. But I also wanted to give a couple things. I wanted to give a shout out to Dark Star Bookstore, which is a local shop here in Yellow Springs. They have, yes, Third Eye. I've opened that a while ago. Hopefully it's not physically protruding. Thank you, Nomad. Let's see. So, Dark Star Bookstore is a wonderful local shop here in Yellow Springs. It is right off of Xenia Avenue in the downtown district of Yellow Springs, right across the street from Tom's Market if you need some physical landmarks of how to get there. They are typically open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Every single day, with the exception of Sunday, which I believe they close at 6 o'clock. Dark Star Bookstore is an amazing place for not only novels, used and brand new books, novels, picture books, comics, manga, manhwa, which is the Tibetan version of manga. They have amazing selection of Studio Ghibli merchandise and memorabilia, and even books that accompany some of those Studio Ghibli films that they are based on. They have wonderful board games, journals, notebooks, sketchbooks, things on clearance, t-shirts of books, t-shirts of book quotes, hats, everything. They have an amazing selection. I highly recommend going to visit them. I will link their Facebook page after this. So please, please, please give love to local business. If you are local, even if you are not and you happen to be in the area, I would highly recommend checking them out online. They have amazing stuff. Shout out to all of my friends at Dark Star Bookstore that always help provide me with some really great materials for when I do Storytime with Chris. This actually is not the copy I got from Dark Star Bookstore, which I have safely tucked in my personal library. This was a gift from a friend. So now I technically have 3 different versions of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, which also comes back to my earlier point. For all of my friends who are nearing their 30s, basically everybody from the 90s and 80s, you all, if you have children, or if you have nieces and nephews, you all need to show them the movies that we grew up with. All of those great animated movies like Rock-a-Doodle, Fern Gully, Page Master, Anastasia, The Land Before Time, The Secret of Nim, All Dogs Go to Heaven, pretty much everything that is non-Disney, that Swan Princess, everything that was a non-Disney company film that is really good. Shrek, like, show them those great movies, please. I thought I spilled my tea. Yes. Ooh, bad habit, kids. Do not crack your knuckles. Don't do it. So, this is going to show you, I remember I told you all we were going to read this. And then after this, we will probably... I gotta wait on my Amazon order to come in, because I wanted a specific hardback cover of the Redwall series. Excuse me, which I have not forgotten about. We are definitely going to read that. And then I have some shorter stuff I want to read on the YouTube channel that I'll upload later. Which, by the way, I see that you all are here watching me on Facebook, but please, please recommend it to your friends, their children, their children's children, their children's children's children, and your other adult friends who just want a nice, soothing voice that is highly animated to read you wonderful classics. Storytime with Chris is a YouTube channel as well as a Facebook following, so please go over to the YouTube channel. I have multiple links on my page that are public. Please go onto the YouTube channel, subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds. I need at least 1,000 subscribers in order to go live on YouTube so I can put all of what Storytime with Chris is on one singular platform. I do not do this for profit. This is a fun little project for me to get kids engaged in reading and literature. Get adults engaged about loving the magic of literature and so on. So, yes, please subscribe. I would be very grateful. And without further ado, we are going to begin. Oh wow. These illustrations are amazing. Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There by Lewis Carroll. Now this is a poem that I'm not super familiar with, but just bear with me. Child of the pure, unclouded brow and dreaming eyes of wonder, though time be fleet and I and thou are half a life asunder, the loving smile will surely hail the love gift of a fairy tale. I have not seen thy sunny face, nor heard thy silver laughter. No thought of me shall find a place in my thy young life's hereafter, even though now thou wilt not fail to listen to my fairy tale. A tale begun in other days when summer suns were glowing, a simple chime that served to time the rhythm of our rowing, whose echoes live in memory yet, though envious years would say, forget. Come hearken then, ere voice of dread with bitter tidings laden shall summon to unwelcome bed a melancholy maiden. We are but older children, dear, who fret to find our bedtime near. Without the frost, the blinding snow, the storm wind's moody madness, within the firelight's ruddy glow and childhood's nest of gladness, the magic words shall hold thee fast, thou shalt not heed the raving blast. And though the shadow of a sigh may tremble through the story, for happy summer days gone by and vanished summer glory, it shall not touch with breath of bale the pleasance of our fairy tale. Chapter 1. Looking Glass House. One thing was certain, that the white kitten had had nothing to do with it. It was the black kitten's fault entirely, for the white kitten had had the old cat wash its face for the last quarter of an hour, and bearing it pretty well considering. So you see that it couldn't have had any hand in the mischief. The way Dinah washed her children's faces was this. First she held the poor thing down by its ear with one paw, and then with the other paw she rubbed its face all over the wrong way, beginning at the nose. And just now, as I said, she was hard at work on the white kitten, which was lying quite still and trying to purr, no doubt feeling that it was all meant for its good. But the black kitten had been finished with earlier in the afternoon, and so, while Alice was sitting curled up in the corner of a great armchair, talking to herself, and half asleep, the kitten was having a loving game of romps with a ball of worsted Alice had been trying to wind up. So, that is one of Dinah's kittens. And been rolling it up and down till it had all come undone again, and there it was, spread over the hearthrug, all knots and tangles, with the kitten running after its own tail in the middle. "Oh, you wicked, wicked little thing," cried Alice, catching up the kitten and giving it a little kiss to make it understand that it was not in disgrace. "Really, Dinah ought to have taught you better manners." "You ought, Dinah, you know you ought," she added, looking reproachfully at the old cat, and speaking in as cross a voice as she could manage. And then she scrambled back into the armchair, taking the kitten and the worsted with her, and began winding up the ball again. But she didn't get on very fast, as she was talking all the time, sometimes to the kitten and sometimes to herself. Kitty sat very demurely on her knee, pretending to watch the progress of the winding, and now and then putting out one paw and gently touching the ball, as if it would be glad to help it if it might. "Do you know what tomorrow is, Kitty?" Alice began. "You'd have guessed if you'd have been in the window with me, only Dinah was making you tidy, so you couldn't. I was watching the boys getting sticks for the bonfire, and it wants plenty of sticks, Kitty. Only it got so cold and it snowed so that they had to leave off. Never mind, Kitty, we'll go and see the bonfire tomorrow." Here Alice wound 2 or 3 turns of the worsted around the kitten's neck just to see how it would look. This led to a scramble in which the ball rolled down upon the floor and yards of it got unwound again. "Do you know I was so angry, Kitty," Alice went on as soon as they were comfortably settled again, "when I saw all the mischief you had been doing. I was very nearly opening the window and putting you out into the snow, and you would have deserved it, too. You little mischievous darling, what have you got to say for yourself? Now, don't interrupt me," she went on, holding up one finger. "I'm going to tell you all your faults. Number 1, you squeaked twice while Dinah was washing your face this morning. Now, you can't deny it, Kitty. I heard you." "What's that you say?" Pretending that the kitten was speaking. "Her paw went into your eye." "Well, that's your fault for keeping your eyes open. If you'd shut them up tight, it wouldn't have happened. Now, don't make any more excuses, but listen. Number 2, you pulled Snowdrop away by the tail just as I put down the saucer of milk before her." "What, were you thirsty? Were you? How do you know she wasn't thirsty, too? Now for number 3, you unwound every bit of the worsted while I wasn't looking." Which, kids, for education, worsted is a ball of yarn. So it's like constantly rolling it up so it can be a ball, but the kid's been playing with it, so it's unwinding. Fun fact. "That's 3 faults, Kitty, and you've not been punished for any of them yet. You know I'm saving all your punishments for Wednesday week. Suppose they have saved up all my punishments." She went on talking more to herself than the kitten. "What would they do at the end of a year? I should be sent to prison, I suppose, when the day came. Or, let me see, suppose each punishment was to be going without dinner. Then when the miserable day came, I should have to go without 50 dinners at once. Well, I shouldn't mind that much. I'd far rather go without them than eat them." There's Alice. "Do you hear the snow against the window panes, Kitty? How nice and soft it sounds, just as if someone was kissing the window all over outside. I wonder if the snow loves the trees and fields, that it kisses them so gently. And then it covers them up snug, you know, with a white quilt, and perhaps it says, 'Go to sleep, darlings, till the summer comes again.' And when they wake up in the summer, Kitty, they dress themselves all in green and dance about whenever the wind blows." "Oh, that's so very pretty," cried Alice, dropping the ball of worsted to clamp her hands. "And I do so wish it was true. I'm sure the woods look sleepy in the autumn, when the leaves are getting brown. Kitty, can you play chess? Now don't smile, my dear. I'm asking it seriously. Because when we were playing just now, you watched just as if you understood it. And when I said check, you purred. But it was a nice check, Kitty. And, well, really I might have won, if only it hadn't been for that nasty night that came wriggling down among my pieces. Kitty, dear, let's pretend." And here I wish I could tell you half the things Alice used to say, beginning with her favorite phrase, "Let's pretend." She had had quite a long argument with her sister only the day before, all because Alice had begun with, "Let's pretend we're kings and queens." And her sister, who liked being very exact, had argued that they couldn't, because there were only 2 of them, and Alice had been reduced to, at last, to say, "Well, you could be one of them, then, and I'll be the rest." And when she had really frightened her own nurse by shouting suddenly in her ear, "Nurse, do let's pretend that I'm a hungry hyena and you're a bone." But this is taking us away from Alice's speech to the kitten. "Let's pretend that you're the Red Queen, Kitty. Do you know, I think if you sat up and folded your arms, you'd look exactly like her. Now do try, there's a dear." And Alice got the Red Queen off the table and set it up before the kitten as a model for it to imitate. However, the thing didn't succeed, principally, Alice said, because the kitten wouldn't fold its arms properly. So to punish it, she held it up to the looking-glass that it might see how sulky it was. "And if you're not good directly, I'll put you into looking-glass house." How would you like that? Now, if you'll only attend, Kitty, and not talk so much, I'll tell you all my ideas about Looking Glass House. First, there's the room you can see through the glass. That's just the same as our drawing room, only the things go the other way. I can see all of it when I sit up on a chair. All but the bit just beyond the fireplace. Ooh, I do wish I could see beyond that bit. So here, our story begins. I want so much to know whether they have a fire in the winter. You can never tell, you know, unless our fire smokes and then smokes come up in that room too. But that may be only pretense, just to make it look as if they had a fire. Well then, the books are something like our books, only the words go the wrong way. I know that because I've held up one of our books to the glass, and then they hold up one in the other room. How would you like to live in Looking Glass House, Kitty? I wonder if they give you milk in there. Perhaps Looking Glass milk isn't good to drink, but oh, Kitty, now we come to the passage. You can see a little peep of the passage in Looking Glass House. If you leave the door of our drawing room wide open, and it's very like our passage as far as you can see, only you know it might be quite difficult on beyond. Oh, Kitty, how nice it would be if we could only get through into Looking Glass House. I'm sure it's got, oh, such beautiful things. Let's pretend there's a way of getting into it, somehow, Kitty. Let's pretend the glass has got all soft like gauze, so that we can get through. Why, it's turning into a certain mist now, I declare. It'll be easy enough to get through. She was up on the chimney piece while she said this, and though she hardly knew how she had got there, and certainly the glass was beginning to melt away, just like a bright silver mist. In another moment, Alice was through the glass and had jumped lightly down into the looking glass room. The very first thing she did was to look whether there was a fire in the fireplace, and she was quite pleased to find that there was a real one blazing away as brightly as the one she had left behind. "So I shall be as warm here as I was in the old room," thought Alice. "Warmer, in fact, because there'll be no one here to scold me away from the fire. Oh, what fun it'll be when they see me through the glass in here and can't get at me." Then she began looking about and noticed what could be seen from the old room was quite common and uninteresting, but that all the rest was as different as possible. For instance, the pictures on the wall near the fire seemed to be all alive, and the very clock on the chimney piece, you know, you could only see the back of it in the looking glass, had got the face of a little old man and grinned at her. "They don't keep this room so tidy as the other," Alice thought to herself, as she noticed several of the chessmen down in the hearth among the cinders. But in another moment, with a little "oh" of surprise, she was down on her hands and knees watching them. The chessmen were walking about, 2 and 2. "Here are the Red King and the Red Queen," Alice said in a whisper for fear of frightening them. "And there are the White King and White Queen, sitting on the edge of the shovel. And here are 2 castles walking arm in arm. I don't think they can hear me," she went on as she put her head closer down, "and I'm nearly sure they can't see me. I feel somehow as if I was getting invisible." Here something began squeaking on the table behind Alice, and made her turn her head just in time to see one of the white pawns rolling over and begin kicking. She watched it with great curiosity to see what would happen next. "It is the voice of my child, my imperial kitten!" the White Queen cried out as she rushed past the king so violently that she knocked him over among the cinders, and she began scrambling wildly up the side of the fender. "Imperial fiddlesticks!" said the king, rubbing his nose, which had been hurt by the fall. She had a right to be a little annoyed when the queen, for he was covered with ashes from head to foot. Alice was very anxious to be of use, and as the poor little lily was nearly screaming herself into a fit, she hastily picked up the queen and set her up on the table by the side of her noisy little daughter. The queen gasped and sat down. The rapid journey through the air had quite taken her breath away, and for a minute or two she could do nothing but hug the little lily in silence. As soon as she recovered her breath a little, she called out to the White King, who was sitting sulkily among the ashes, "Mind the volcano!" "What volcano?" said the king, looking up anxiously into the fire as he thought this was the most likely place to find one. "Blew me up!" panted the queen, who was still a little out of breath. "Mind you come up the regular way. Don't get blown up." Alice watched the White King as he slowly struggled up from bar to bar, till at last she said, "Why, you'll be hours and hours getting at the table at that rate. I'd far better help you, hadn't I?" But the king took no notice of the question, and it was quite certain and clear that he could neither hear her nor see her. So Alice picked him up very gently and lifted him across more slowly than she had lifted the queen, and she mightn't take his breath away. But before she put him on the table, she thought she might as well dust him a little, he was so covered in ashes. She said afterwards that she had never seen in all her life such a face as the king made. Try to give an impression of what he looks like. When she found himself held in the air by an invisible hand and being dusted. He was far too much astonished to cry out, but his eyes and his mouth went on getting larger and larger and rounder till her hand shook so much with laughter that she nearly let him drop upon the floor. "Oh, please don't make such faces, my dear," she cried out, quite forgetting that the king couldn't hear her. You make me laugh so hard that I can hardly hold you. And don't keep your mouth so wide open, all the ashes will get into it. There, now I think you're tidy enough," she added, and she smoothed his hair and set him up upon the table near the queen. The king immediately fell flat, not fat, on his back and lay perfectly still. And Alice was a little alarmed at what she had done, and went round the room to see if she could find any water to throw on him. Yeah, that's the White King. This little chubby guy. He's like, what is happening? What are these shenanigans? However, she could find nothing but a bottle of ink, and when she got back with it, she found he had recovered, and he and the queen were talking together in a frightened whisper, so low that Alice could hardly hear what they had said. The king was saying, "I assure you, my dear, I turn cold to the very ends of my whiskers." "You haven't got any whiskers." To which the queen replied, "The horror of that moment," the king went on, "I shall never forget." "You will, though," the queen said, "if you don't make a memorandum of it." Alice looked on with great interest as the king took an enormous memorandum book out of his pocket and began writing. Kind of was like, yeah! Because, magic. A sudden thought struck her, and she took hold of the end of the pencil, which came some way over his head, and began writing for him. The poor king looked puzzled and unhappy, and struggled with the pencil for some time without saying anything, but Alice was too strong for him, and at last he panted out, "My dear, I really must get a thinner pencil. I can't imagine this one a bit. It all writes all manners of things that I don't intend." "What manner of things?" said the queen, looking over the book in which Alice had put the White Knight is sliding down the poker. He balances very badly. "That's not a memorandum of your feelings." There was a book lying near Alice on the table, and while she sat watching the White King, for she was still a little anxious about him and had the ink all ready to throw over him in case he fainted again, she turned over the leaves to find some part that she could read. "For it's all in some language I don't know," she said to herself. It was like this. So that was what Alice was writing about. The knight is sliding down the poker. He does so very badly. But this is what she saw. Now, because this is a reflective surface, y'all, it's going to read correctly. But typically, like, if you ever get the copy of the book, it is backwards. Because this is a reflective surface, it's going to read the right way. There are actually a couple of novels that do that. One particular novel, which is my favorite book of all time, which we will get to read at some point. The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. We will get to read that. And we will... I wonder if there's a way to do, like... I know you could do it on Netflix where you could do a viewing party, but I wanted to read the Never-Ending Story and then watch the first and second one, because the first and second one are more accurate to the novel. Not completely, but pretty accurate. She puzzled over this for some time, and at last a bright thought struck her. Why, it's a looking-glass book, of course, and if I hold it up to a glass, the words will all go the right way again. This was the poem that she read. Jabberwocky. 'Twas brilling, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All a mimsy were the borgoves, and the momraths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that snatch. Beware the Jubjubberb, and shun the fruvious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in oafish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade with snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with his head he went galloping back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock, my son? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. Oh, fragile day, Callooh Callay. He chortled in his joy. 'Twas brilling, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All a mimsy were the borogoves, and the momraths outgrabe. And this is a picture of the young man and the Jabberwocky. Pretty frightening, isn't it? But even if something looks scary, y'all, you can always defeat it, as long as you stand your ground. Never be afraid of the dark. It seems very pretty, she said when she had finished it, but it's rather hard to understand. You see, she did like to confess, even to herself, that she couldn't make it out at all. Somehow it seems to fill my head with ideas, only I don't exactly know what they are. However, somebody killed something. That's clear at any rate. But oh, thought Alice, suddenly jumping up, if I don't make haste, I shall have to go back through the looking-glass before I've seen what the rest of the house is like. Let's have a look at the garden first. She was out of the room in a minute, and ran downstairs, or at least it wasn't exactly running, but a new adventure for getting downstairs quickly and easily, as Alice said to herself. She just kept the tips of her fingers on the handrail and floated gently down without even touching the stairs with her feet. She then floated on through the hall, and would have gone straight out the door in the same way if she hadn't caught hold of the doorpost. She was getting a little giddy with so much floating in the air, and was rather glad to find herself walking again in the natural way. Now it's up to audience participation if you would like me to continue to chapter 2. Otherwise, we can stop here. Because these chapters are a bit more lengthier in nature. So, it's up to you all if you would like me to continue on to the next chapter. If not, we can call it a break here, and I'll be back tomorrow. I will definitely be back tomorrow. I told y'all, I know this story like the back of my hand. Love it, love it, love it. Such a wonderful story. Alright, y'all. We will call it a day. I'm just glad to be back. I hope you all have enjoyed this first chapter of Through the Looking Glass and what Alice found there. Thank you all so much. Be good to each other. Be kind. Don't let anybody rain on your parade. And speak up for those who cannot speak up for themselves. I'll see you soon.